I caught my fair share of snapper this year, so hopefully I can pass on a few tips to help you catch a few more. Just for some context, I'm predominantly fishing from my kayak or my little 3 meter flat tinny, so I'm not going super deep or super far from the shore. The deepest I'm usually fishing is around 6 meters, down to anything like a foot of water. I'm sure these tips will apply elsewhere, but that's just some context for you. First things first, finding snapper, it does pay to sound around. You're looking for fish on the sounder. Sometimes if it's down scan or if it's traditional sonar view, you can really tell that they're snapper. They're squiggly lines, almost look like little mustaches. That's the sort of thing you're looking for. If sounding's not your style, if you'd rather be casting than driving around looking at a screen, what I'd be doing is spending the night before, looking at the area you want to fish and marking as many different pieces of structure that you can find on Google Maps or something like Queensland Globe even. After that, on the day, you're probably spending about half an hour at each spot. If it's dead, move on. You do need to give it a little bit of time to try and figure out, cast a few different lures at them and hopefully make them bite. But if you're not sounding around, if you're just going to marks and fishing those areas, it does pay just to spend only half an hour and then move on. One tip I have is if you find them at one depth, oftentimes they'll be at that depth on other pieces of structure, so that can help narrow down the playing field a little bit on the day. So regarding gear, you can get away with brim gear, 1 to 3 kilo, fast action, ultralight rods, and you do want to be running spinning outfits when chasing snapper. Long casts are the aim of the game, and spin setups will help you do that. Usually on these rods, I'm running like a 2500 size reel, anything like 10-pound braid and 8-pound leader. Sometimes you go up to that 12-pound if you're fishing really tight structure or shallow reefs, but generally speaking, I'm not going beyond that 12-pound. Second setup is a medium light, 3 to 5 kilo, fast action spin rod, 4000 size reel, 20-pound braid, 12-pound leader, sometimes even up to 20-pound leader if you're chasing some big uns. And that is really when you know you're going to have to fight some pretty serious fish pretty hard to get them away from that reef or that structure. So I've got 3 different lures I'm talking about today, and I've categorized them as catches the most fish, catches the least fish, but probably the biggest fish, and somewhere in between where you're targeting that legal size and bigger, but you're probably going to have a great day and still catch a ton of fish. So if you just want to head out, have a great day, smack a ton of fish, you don't care if you're throwing them all back, then the Rapala 2.5 inch creeper will do just that. I rig it on a 1/8 ounce 1.0 VMC gripper finesse jig head, and depending on the wind or the tide movement, this might feel difficult to work the lure if you're not used to plastics fishing. So if you're struggling to stay in contact with that 1/8 ounce lure, try spot locking or anchoring down current or downwind from the structure and bring it back with the flow. Alternatively, if you are drifting, which in my opinion is the best way to chase snapper, then what you're going to be doing is casting at a 45-degree angle ahead of the drift. So let's say I'm drifting this way on the boat. I'm not going to cast in front and run into my lure. I'm not going to cast behind and drag it and snag up. Casting to the side can work if you happen to have the right conditions where you're moving with the lure, but more often than not, what you'll be doing is if the boat's going this way, you're casting slightly ahead of the drift like that. So I'd be casting out to here and moving along with the lure like that. Anywhere up to 5 hops will work for this. The snapper are going to hit it on the drop. But if you're new to this, I recommend 2 hops. The first hop is really just collecting a slack line, and the second hop will bring the lure off the ground. Stay in contact with that lure and wait for the hit. As far as colors go, if the water's super clear, purple haze is awesome. If the water is dirtier or it's an overcast day and that sort of thing, motor oil UV is definitely my pick around here. Now, if you really care about taking home a feed, you don't care about getting as many bites as you might get on something like the creeper, but you want to take home some legal fish, I'd be running the Rapala Crush City 3.75 inch The Jerk. You can rig this on a 1/4 ounce 2.0 or 3.0 jig head and use it in the same way as the creeper, hopping it along. The difference with this lure is that it dives faster, so it's great to cover more ground. So I've found 3 colors that are most effective for snapper. If I'm fishing at night or at those twilight hours, I'm running bait fish. During the daytime, I'm predominantly running glow shad unless the water's dirty. So if the water's super dirty, I'm running budgie. Now my last lure definitely gets less bites, but they are the right bites. You'll catch some big snapper on this lure, but you might go an hour or two between hits. So it's the trade-off you need to make. But if I was heading out with a specific goal of targeting big fish or a PB, I'd be running the Rapala Crush City 5-inch The Jerk. Now, I run this in a couple of colors. Glow Shad is by far my favorite, and Real Shad as well. I'll run those in all water conditions, and I fish this one on a 3/8 ounce 4.0 VMC Gripper heavy jig head. So this is a lure that I throw on that heavier setup, my medium 3 to 5 kilo. I will also throw the smaller jerk on that if I still think there's big fish around, but predominantly this is what I'm going to be throwing on that rod. I tend to try and fish this in an area first. If there's a big one there, I'll catch it. If I'm not getting bites, I'll downsize to the smaller jerk or the creeper. Now 3/8 ounce might sound super heavy where we're fishing, but with this lure, even though it's got that slimline profile, it's a lot of plastic. So you need that weight to get it down. 3/8 ounce still gives it a really, really great action in the water, and it's not just bulleting itself to the bottom. So that's some tips for you, my most effective snapper lures for 2025. Who knows, it might change over the next year, but that's what has built my confidence in chasing snapper this year. Hope this helps you out. Thanks for watching.